Hello. Happy Wednesday. I'm confirming my ID on my little bird here. Yeah, that's not a bay-breasted. That's a chestnut-sided warbler. I'm pretty sure. I could look up exactly which page this is in the index, but that would clearly be cheating. Clearly. Oh, just those. Boop, boop, boop. Bay-breasted. Nope. Here we go. Yeah, yellow hat. Alright. This is our bird for today. Bay-breasted. I'm sorry, chestnut-sided. Blah. It's not a bay-breasted. It is a chestnut-sided warbler. Actually, I can do... There, right? One of these things looks exactly like the other. So, yeah. Like, bird ID, when you can hold the bird up to the picture, is immensely easy compared to, like, oh, there's something in a tree that's backlit. But this guy is a full mating plumage, most likely male, chestnut-sided warbler. There you go, friend. You can go put in the bag. Shard Mom, it's good to see you. Yeah, I'm sure he'll want the play-by-play. I mean, this is the part that's not as interesting anyway, where I'm just getting data. But I have definitely confirmed that this adorable little bird is a chestnut-sided warbler. For surezies. So... maybe there's something sticky on my pencil. Oh. I'm trying to be fancy and using a mechanical pencil this week, but this one has something sticky on it. Do I have one that's not sticky? It looks okay. Alright, tries. Because my handwriting's bad enough without my pencil getting all mooshed, so here I am leveling up to my mechanical pencil. Alright, chestnut-sided warbler is Dendroica. It's a dang warbler. Oh, pensylvanica. Alright. I guess that tells us where it was probably first ID'd. Apparently, yeah, and according to the distribution map, you will definitely find these in most of Pennsylvania. Pensylvanica. Dendroica pensylvanica. Scientific names. Sure. Chestnut-sided warbler. Sure. Okay. This is prepped by... me. AF... we have to 04, I think. Where's this one? 04. Yeah, 04 has been taken. Ooh, and I forgot to put mine. So something I didn't get to doing on Tuesday, with my usual just sitting around poking at my desk stuff day, is I want to make a spreadsheet where I can track this stuff. So this is 505, 505, AF 505. Because I'm starting to lose track of which, specimen number I'm on, because I've done more than 3. And apparently that's all my brain can hold. They're like, I don't know, it's more than 3. It's some number greater than 3. Good luck. And I'm like, thanks, brain. Go team. So, Okay, so this one is the other bird that was found outside of a Noodles and Company. So the other one had the amusingly overly blown up data. This one's on the original nice little piece of data. And that is fine. And this bird was found on a beautiful day in May. Okay, so... Okay, so... I really, yeah. I need to, like, pre-write out a bunch of these, or even better yet, print them. That'd be cool. I mean, this is something I might be able to even work with the Chicago Academy of Sciences to see if they can just hook me up with something pre-written. But, tarsus, total length. It's just weird to do it on my own. So I haven't... I'm so used to just being able to jump in and start a specimen that I keep forgetting to do this, like, basic build a form step, which is silly. It's the same every time. But I do, because it's not as muscle memory-y, because I'm used to being in a lab where I have stacks of documents that a spreadsheet that I fill out and things like that. So today is 23 deck 2020. Okay. Basics for that little dude out of the way. Alright. So, Chestnut-sided warbler is a common breeder in second growth deciduous forests, usually moves around mid-story, and seems to have its tail perpetually cocked at a 30-degree angle. What a delightfully specific description. Okay. Appears stiff and not too agile, perhaps in part due to its posture. Wow, shade, okay. Emphatic and fast, pleased to meet ya. A common and welcoming song. Okay, that's an adorable way to describe this bird song. ID, fairly large, chunky warbler with a bulging chin that gives it a thick-headed look. I don't know, most of this is pretty not glamorous here. Has a deep, bulging belly, as if a few months pregnant. Broad-based pale bill, broad wing bars, two distinct plumages. Man. I love Crossley. Crossley's descriptions are just delightful. So it's a chunky little bird that says, pleased to meet you, and hangs out in the northeast to midwest, and is very cute. Alright, so I'll put my book away. We can start getting various measurements. You know, I had I gotta start using this plate consistently to measure stuff, because then that helps get my tear at a more reasonable zero. Okay, so here we go. So you can see I'm at 0, like nothing. So this guy weighs 10, maybe slightly less than 10, like 8 grams. Eh, 9 grams. I'll give it 9, because it's less than half an ounce. I'll go with 9 grams. Man, there's another thing I keep forgetting to do, is put up some sort of Amazon wish list. Not that things being shipped around the United States are reaching their destinations right now, but, you know, Maybe someday something will reach my house. Okay, so I'll move that out of the way. I keep putting this guy back in his bag, but that's inaccurate at this point. Non-optimal. Okay. Gosh, he has pretty plumage. It's just really complicated. Like, there's all these fancy yellow-black bars. He's got white cheeks. A little yellow head, but with more of the fancy bars. He's got the chestnut side. The titular chestnut side. It's a really lovely little warbler. Great looking dude. Alright. Starting out with bill length. Bill length is 9.5 millimeters. Bill depth is 4 millimeters. Okay, yeah, the mechanical pencil is working better. This was a good idea. Bill width is 5.5 millimeters. Head length is 28 millimeters. Wing cord. Oh, hello, little friend. What's that? It's a little red dot on that wing. I wonder if my magnifiers will be able to tell me if that is an insect or just some, like, paint fleck. He's got a little bit of feather damage, looks like. Interesting. I don't know if the feather damage will show up on here, maybe. Ooh, Chardon Mom, you said off topic, but do ears always come in pairs, as do eyes, with mouths and noses being singular? The funny thing about that is there can be third eyes. A bunch of reptiles and amphibians have third eyes. So... Oh, hey, not here. So the answer to your question with that is yes. I believe ears are always bilaterally symmetrical. I think there's always two. But they're not necessarily symmetrical in their placement. So, like, owl ears are at slightly different heights on the head, because that gives them a different form of binocular auditory reception. So even though they have the kind of standard set of two, they're at different heights. Whereas, yeah, with eyes, you can get more than the base number of eyes. And I'm assuming we're talking vertebrates here, so I'm not going into, like, spiders and stuff. That doesn't count. But for vertebrates, a lot of reptiles and amphibians have a pineal eye, which is directly in the center of their head, and it has an optic type nerve, and it attaches to their brain, and it does all the optic stuff. It's just a very simple eye that can't, like, look around. It's not an eyeball, but it's got all the nerves and stuff and can register photo periods, so, like, how long the day is and how bright light is, and it can, you know, so if a predator flies overhead, they can see it and dodge. So yeah, that's awkward, and, like, but yeah, so if you imagine, you know, vertebrates tend to be, oh, I found that term yesterday. They're bilateral animals. They've got that, you know, center line, and everything's split along it, and so you can add extra garbage as long as it's even-ish, but that you do have some asymmetry. So owls have skewed ears, but they still have two, whereas eyes can come in sets of three pretty readily on vertebrates. So that's a weird answer to your question. But as far as I know, ears always come in pairs. So I hope that helps. When I learned about pineal eyes, I lost my mind. I only learned about those things 2 years ago-ish, 2.5-ish years ago, because what the fossil I was working on had one. And so I'm digging out this big hole in the top of its head, and they're like, "Oh, it's the pineal eye." And I was like, "Oh, like an eye, like it's just like a term." And they're like, "No, that's an eye." And then when you look up pineal eyes on like iguanas, as soon as you see it, you can't unsee it. It's pretty great. But yes, iguanas. It's crazy. Okay, wind cord. I got distracted by things. Oh, and that bug. Here, let me get my magnifier right quick. Now that I've busted out my magnifying goggles once, I just want them out all the time, obviously. So. Oh yeah, that's a little buggo. Some sort of little red mite. Man, I wish I had a way to save this. I wonder if I can get the magnification on this close enough that you guys can see this bug. I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's play with weird tech. Okay, wait, I have this open here. Boop. We're gonna just zoop. There it is. So that is a little red mite. Wow, my shaking hand looks so much more shaky when I'm zoomed in this much. But I found that little guy on the bird's feathers, and so I don't know if that's like a fork mite that actually was riding on the bird, or if it just happened to be walking by when it got picked up. And so, for reference... Okay, so... Whoop. So there's our mite, right? This is on a paper towel. There's my humongous finger. Tiny little mite. Humongous finger. So, yeah, super teensy little guy. So that's kind of fun. Let's get this back out of nausea mode. Whoop. So, yeah. And there's a lot of species of mites. And so... I'm not even going to attempt to ID that. Nor, unfortunately, save it, because I don't have any ampules or the correct type of alcohol, so I just can't. So, notes. Yeah, okay, so how small can I describe that thing? Maybe a 1/4 of a millimeter? Okay. So, best I can do. Onward to my other measurements. And this is a good reason to keep some sort of white material under an animal when you're messing with it, because who knows what'll fall out of the feathers, and you're much more likely to see it if you have a sheet of paper or something underneath. When I was first learning how to do this at the Field Museum, they actually did have somebody who was doing parasite studies, and so part of our job was to like fluff the feathers over a sheet of paper and collect anything we could. And if you had a particularly parasite-covered bird, that was always very exciting. They wanted to get as much as possible off of it. Wow, that's 60 millimeters on the button. Okay, tarsus. 17 millimeters. Is this really 60? Yeah, no, it was really 60. Anyway, total length. Almost too big to do this with my calipers. If I don't have to bother cleaning another tool, that's fun, and these are pretty accurate, so why not try? All right, 112. 112 millimeters. Alrighty. So we have accurately determined that this is a real small bird. Okay. Yeah, so there's feather damage that implies this guy has feather mites. Oh yeah, I was gonna zoom in a little bit so you guys could potentially see that. Shoop. There we go. You see those stripes along the individual barbs where it looks like there's dirt or something trapped in those feathers? That's potentially tiny, tiny, tiny little arachnids. Tiny, tiny little buggos living in those feathers. Yeah, and that's all throughout there. Feather mites are really common. They usually don't hurt the birds too much. But there we go. Yeah, you can see little clumps and groups of them throughout there. So it's not dirty exactly. It's oh, there's some dirt in there too. But yeah, like, ooh, right through there, all those little dots. Not here, you said, are they still alive? Almost certainly not. This bird has been frozen and thawed and frozen again since May. So probably not. And even if they are alive, I do not have feathers, and I am the wrong temperature. So if they got all over me, they would be like, "Aw, sad," and then would proceed to die. So it's one of the nice things about working on something like a bird is there's a lot of stuff that lives on birds that can't possibly live on me. And so if they crawl off onto my hand, they'll be like, "This is garbage!" And, you know, then usually proceed to starve and die or freeze and die. So. Yeah, and I won't try to clean those out. They're not harming my work at all, and that's a potential thing that future researchers can look at. So I can say feather mite evidence on wings. Alright. Okay, and then I've been holding out the wings and checking those. I'm not seeing any sign of molt. This is just lovely plumage. Yeah, no, that's... The more I look, the more... Whoop. I see a ton up in there. Yeah, so if I had a really, really tight microscope, we could zoom in and you'd be able to see the colonies, but I do not. I have a actually pretty good webcam, but not quite to that level. No molt seen on tail. And so far, nothing on the body, so molt, none. Okay. So, molt, fat, acidification, Okay, so I've got that data going. And so now I can get started on the bird. Get my data well out of the way here. That's my sewing kit. I'll use that later. There's my scalpels. Yeah, not here. To go back to your question about are they alive, I am happy to say that I have never opened a bag and had anything in it that showed any sign of life. I don't want that. If it's supposed to be dead, I would like it to be dead. Thank you very much. And I have found all manner of things: spiders, worms, intestinal worms, ticks, all sorts of mites, fleas. You know, all sorts of friends that basically were in the back, fly eggs, and joyfully, they're all dead, all inert, as it dang well should be at that point. Bot flies, I have found bot flies. I have found a live bot fly once, but that wasn't out of the freezer. I had picked up a rabbit next to a trash can out in front of the museum that someone had just reported. We went out and got him, and picked the rabbit up and put it on a tray, and as we're wearing gloves, as we're moving the corpse onto a tray, the botfly came tumbling out of an aperture in its neck, and the shrieking was a lot. It was a lot of freaking out, because botflies are horrible. Yeah, no, I'm glad they're all dead. Like, there's, generally speaking, I like my, critters to be alive, but when it comes to parasites and the expectation of what I'm going to find, if I expect it to be dead, I really want it to be dead. And, like, even with the birds, people ask, are you sure it's dead? Yeah, it's been frozen. It's definitely dead. But even if I find a bird and I'm the one who puts it in the freezer, I give that little friend a minute. I'm like, okay, buddy, before I put you away, I need to be absolutely sure you're dead, and I'll shine lights in their eyes to check for pupillary contraction. I'll just let them sit out while I'm doing my data management to see if I see anything, because I don't know how I would live with that if I thought I put a living bird in the freezer. So both directions. I really try to be incredibly mindful, where when I'm putting something in the freezer, it better be dead. The vertebrate better be dead before I put it in there. Its hangers-on can deal. And then when it comes out, everything better freaking be dead. I don't need that. That doesn't sound like any good to me. Yeah, so I can say with confidence I have never accidentally put a live bird in the freezer, because I really check to make sure they're dead before I pop them in there. And I've never found, like, some sort of horrible mark on the inside of a bag that indicated the bird moved around or something like that. Like, happy to say, nothing of that sort. Whereas I have found just, like, really badly injured birds where they're breathing, but not a lot else is happening, and those go off to a wildlife rescue, So I do check. And the birds are funny because, concussions suck. I don't know if you guys have ever had a concussion. They suck. They're real bad. So obviously it sucks for the bird too. Everything hurts. And so, and they have no sense of balance sometimes. And so they're just like sideways and really freaked out. But man, you put that little monster in a bag or a box for like an hour or two, and by the end they're up and they have attitude again. It's pretty great. So they usually still go off to the rescue group. The rescue group will give them fluids and just give them a little longer to heal before they're released out in the world, which is pretty great. But yeah, birds, generally, if they don't die from the impact, they do pretty okay. Aw, Sheridan Mom, you like the bald eagle stream? I'm so glad. I like that too. Yeah, they're captive bald eagles, but you can actually see the babies. Like, it's great. Alright, let's get this guy open. I have this labeled as mostly not gross. I've been getting feedback that people don't find a lot of these steps super gross. So I'll probably change that to being the really gross, gross taxidermy warning when I do the head. But I look for feedback for you guys. So right now, mostly not gross, even though I'm about to cut into the bird. But you tell me if I should update that. But yeah, Sheridan Mom, I'm really glad that you enjoyed that bald eagle stream. I found that a friend of mine actually found it and recommended it. And her opinion was if oh, you got to watch the dad feed the babies, and that's exactly it. Like you're watching the eagles feeding critters to their babies, and so it's certain tonally, it's a lot of raw meat. It's mostly fish, but you get to actually kind of see that wildlife bit, and that's kind of wonderful. That's really cute. I'm really glad. I couldn't stay on long enough to catch that bit, but I'm really glad that you guys had a fun part. Mostly when I watch, I have seen both parents on the nest, but I haven't actually gotten to see feeding yet. But how great, right? Here's, other things on Twitch. Here's a eagle group, conservation group that does a live feed. And so it's interesting because rating them, they don't care, wiggle quotes, as much as I do, because there's not usually a human really watching the feed the same way that you have on a lot of other streams. But of course you want more people to support, that conservation initiative and all that sort of stuff, so it's nice. Monterey Bay Aquarium has a pretty good live feed. Okay. It was funny too, because when I first was looking for someone to raid, none of the creative type Twitch people were on, and I was like, oh. And then of course as soon as I left my computer, I started getting announcements that they've come online, and I'm like, ah. But if you guys got to actually watch baby eagles get fed by their parents, that's pretty wonderful, actually. And I love stories like, the rebound of the bald eagle, because they very nearly went extinct not too long in the past, and people got them back. And it's a lot of times it's a lot of doom and gloom when people are talking about conservation, and it actually is, unless you do something about it. But it's nice to see that you can do something about it, and it has an effect. It does something. If people actually are willing to make a massive change, and in this case fertilizer, but whatever it is that's relevant to that particular instance, you can actually affect change and actually save that part of the world, and it's really nice. The bald eagles and peregrine falcons, they're doing great, which is pretty darn cool. And now we have to turn our attention to all the other things that aren't doing great, but it's addressable. You just have to be willing to look at it and admit things are rough and it's humans' fault, and that feels bad, but we can fix it. We've got our bald eagles back. They're big, cool birds that make a really silly noise. Chardon Mom, you said, do you always raid when you go offline? I'm trying to get into that habit. As I get more ingrained in the culture of Twitch, I'm learning that that's very much a thing. That's how you network. That's how you support each other. It's a great culture, and so I'm really trying to always raid. And I think from the point of view of you guys, the viewers, it's interesting too. It's like having the next TV program on where your show is over and you're probably going to turn off your viewing device, but maybe you'll stay on a little bit longer, see this different thing you didn't know was on next. And I just like the culture of it. So yeah, I'm gonna try and raid every time. And I mean, sometimes I just gotta go. I'm not gonna beat myself up if I don't, but I like the idea of it. Yeah, and like again, the bald eagle cam didn't really, you know, in an immediate sense, didn't care that I raided, but they did have a bot that thanked me for the raid, which was nice. And so there was a program that responded when it saw that I had raided their channel, and you know, it's not as satisfying as have the actual human freak out that you've done a raid, but it's still nice. And it's cool to have different, you know, a variety of people, organizations, topics, whatever, on a platform like this. Because then you get wider viewership and better pickup. Because as far as I know, I am the only person doing skin taxidermy on Twitch. I've found bones, people doing bone prep, who actually have, like, their beetles and all that other really great stuff that I do not have. But I think I'm the only person doing skin. The closest thing that we found is that somebody plays video games in their garage, and sometimes their dad stands behind them and preps buckskins. Which, okay, there's a setup. And that's the closest I've found to anybody doing anything like this, so. You need more science. And luckily there are science streamers, like, there's a really funny one I found the other day, who was streaming today, I don't know if they're still on, called, Diatom Attack. And it's a researcher in Indiana studying diatoms, which are tiny, tiny little plankton things. And there's this fantastic Swedish guy who does spider ID. He's specifically working on a huge project that's inventorying spiders from across Sweden. And so he's got his little home lab set up and doing spider ID while chatting with people. But science crews tend to be 9 to 5 in whatever time zone they're in. You know, so like, nuts, I think tore his shoulder. Anyway, fix that later. But yeah, science tends to happen during the day when there's just less people on, because people have, like, jobs and stuff. But that makes sense, because it's their jobs. So, meh. Because if you actually go on, like, the Twitch browse page for science and technology, it's, the majority is computer science. It's people doing programming and stuff like that, which is legitimately science, but not really in line with what I do. And so it's always nice when I find somebody who's doing something a little closer to my types. But they do tend to be during the day. I am so annoyed I ripped the shoulder. It's so fixable, but it's so annoying. It's a really small bird. Yeah, it's a really small bird. Oh, teensy warblers, I love you. You are so fun. And really picky and finicky. Guess I'm a little quiet today. The sun did come out a little bit today, so that was nice. It's weirdly warm today in Chicago. It's like mid-50s, real weirdly warm. And then the temperature is going to plummet 40 degrees and 50 degrees, and like tonight the low is 8. So some sort of really strange, you know, blob of air is moving across the United States. So it's kind of weird December warm today. And then tomorrow will be definitely cold. And it's tough because, like, I want it to be cold because it's December and that's appropriate and it's better for the local ecosystem. but I like obviously it feels better to be outside when it's 50 degrees, but it sort of like makes me uncomfortable and weirds me out that it's 50 degrees, so it's hard to like enjoy it. Alright. Get through that knee. Boop. And I don't know if you guys saw, I am not streaming tomorrow. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. I'm doing other stuff. I am planning on being back on Saturday for my usual stream, but I'm going to skip the Thursday stream for this week. It's basically like my one day off. not that I really need days off right now, but I've decided to take that as a holiday. Alright. Well, the bottom of this bird seems to be going pretty okay. So I was reading a bunch about preen glands yesterday, and apparently I'd been pronouncing their technical name wrong. The correct term for a bird's preen gland is the uropygial gland. For some reason I'd been saying ceropygial, and I don't know why. So it was good to go back and look at it and be like, oh, uropygial. So if you'd heard me mispronounce that in the past, it's the uropygial gland is the technical term for the bird's preen gland. And apparently there's lots and lots of studies involving preen glands, to see exactly what the preen goo does. Because it definitely pretty conclusively conditions feathers. Like, it makes the feather quality improve. Great. It's a nice oily substance that conditions the feathers and fixes the little barbules and makes the bird look better. And thus be drier and healthier and all that mess. But then there's various and sundry other studies in specific species to figure out if they do other things. Like apparently African hoopoes have like a bacteria that lives in their preen glands that help fight off bad bacteria, other bacteria. So they have a weird symbiotic relationship with stuff that lives in this little gland on their butt. Okay. There's various studies about how effective it is at waterproofing, but that's inconclusive because not all birds that spend a lot of time in the water have big uropygial glands. So maybe it helps some, but not others, blah, blah, blah. The research does go on. All right. Let's get that little body out. Okay. Well, that went pretty well. So I did tear the shoulder a little bit. Not happy about that. But the bottom part of the bird skinned out real nice. So let's get these leggies out. Solidify that wing. Move the little body out of the way. Yeah. This bird is tiny. Yeah, like, that's the whole torso. Like, here's my ginormous index finger. And there's its whole torso. Like, yeah. Thumb pad versus torso. So that's a teensy-weensy little bird. Warblers are tiny. And of course, all birds don't look quite as tiny as they are because they're fluffy. but they're real small. Like, every year around Thanksgiving, at least in the groups I frequent on social media, someone will circulate a outline where it shows a turkey's skeleton, and then it shows the outline of the turkey and how just ridiculous their fluff is compared to, like, their skeleton, their skin, and their fluff. Birds are masters of fluff. Oh, that was a cool thing from the research yesterday. I basically was reading all about feathers, too. So bird stuff broadly, but feather-related things. And they're now saying that feathers might not be exclusive to just dinosaurs and birds, but there's some evidence that pterosaurs had feathers. And pterosaurs are ancient reptiles, but they weren't dinosaurs. But they are in the archosaur group, and archosaurs also include, like, crocodiles and stuff like that. And the structures that they found originally, they're like, oh yeah, some of them had hair, but it's not feathers, it's just single strands, it's more of a hair. You know, that happens, I guess, and people moved by. And then they found more specimens that had these structures on them, and you could tell that there was a higher variation. So some of them were, like, basically down feathers, and a couple other variations. They're like, these are feathers. Yeah, that's very annoying when things don't fit into your neat little stereotyped categories, but also fascinating and cool. So that's why the work continues. Is you just when you think you got it, nature's like, yeah, but what if you look a little closer? And you're like, ah, nature. I hadn't really looked a little closer yet. It's quite cool. Because pterosaurs didn't fly using their feathers. They flew with skin over their hands, and they had heavily modified hand and arm bones. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have feathers for all the other things that feathers are good for, which is mostly making you fluffy. Keeping you warm and keeping the sun off of your tissues so that the radiation from our day star doesn't cause horrible genetic mutations, which is one of the main reasons we have skin. Okay. So little leggies done. Okay, so I tore the neck here on this side, so you can see how, like, the head has that twist to it. So even though these two wings are even, the head's going off in one direction. Super annoying there, so I have to be careful when I'm skinning out this wing not to make that tear worse. It's not super close to it, but it's just always good to say it out loud and remember I'm doing that. Yeah, nature is not simple. Anytime we think we have a simple answer, we're wrong. Like, no, don't do it. Don't assume. Okay. So one thing I guess concerned is too strong a term, but vaguely concerned about with doing this little bird today is if it is going to be 8 degrees tonight, my back stairwell gets pretty cold. So it won't be 8 degrees cold, but it will probably freeze. And that won't hurt my specimen in any true sense, but it will slow the drying process potentially. And so I'm interested to see how that works out. So I don't think it'll be a problem. I'm not going to move my specimens or anything. They'll be fine. Because the number one thing is just that they are dry. But yeah, it's going to get pretty darn cold out there, actually. You know, I'm going to go back to just removing the radius on warblers. I think it makes more sense. Anything bigger than a warbler, I'm definitely open to keeping them, but... So, unsurprisingly, I don't have any, like, actual big Christmas plans. It's not the year for that. So it's going to be rolling through a lot of the movies that we've talked about on here, and eating, pretty much. Which, you know, good combo. and petting the cats and probably playing a lot of computer games. Because Chicago had some pretty cool, or has some pretty cool stuff that you can do either in a socially distant manner or like completely kind of encased in your car. But no, we have not yet watched Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, so that's one of the things on the list. Christmas Eve and Christmas, one of the we'll watch that. Yeah, because I've gotten a lot of great suggestions. That's high up there on my great suggestions, so that will be soon. But yeah, I'm not gonna go do any of the, like, drive out and see lights things. Or whatever. Just stay home. Just be warm. Don't worry about it. Drink hot chocolate. And that leaves more room for the people for whom it's very important to get to. Because if I'm feeling tepid about it, I don't want to take a ticket away from somebody who's really excited, you know? Because I basically, this is the year of next year. I don't know if you guys have been finding yourself saying that. You know, oh, we're not going to do this year, but next year we'll whatever. So in this year of next year, one of my things is going out and doing holiday stuff. I'll do it next year. I'm fine with leaving space for people who have, you know, excited kids, or they themselves are just really feeling it, to be able to go out and do holiday stuff. I'll go next year. It'll be fine. You know, whereas stuff that I really cared about, sending out presents, eating different foods, making cookies, all that stuff I will do, because I do find myself wanting that. So since I strongly want it, well, heck, yeah, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to do those things. And, you know, try to find the balance. Alright, got those wings out. Now I gotta do the head without making this neck tear worse. Ew. So it's torn right up against the skin of the neck. That's annoying. Yeah, because my tear, if I can make it really obvious here. Basically the tear is here, so I've got this nice like wall of fluff here, and then over here it's sort of this jagged thing. That's because I biffed it, and I have to continue skinning in a way that won't unzip that worse, make that any worse. Okay, I think I got that. Yeah, I got that pretty well freed. So it shouldn't be too bad as long as I don't stress it anymore. Okay, so now I'm going to change my overlay to say that it's gross, because we're doing heads, and people find that really gross. So there we go. Now we're at the gross warning taxidermy. Because heads, you know, people have feelings about that. A little different than doing the rest of it. I'm really excited to get this bird done, though, because I'm more or less meeting my goals of trying to get all these research birds kind of knocked out. Oh, shoot. Okay. Check this out. That is a big dang hole. So you can see where it's split. It's kind of an eye-shaped hole. So that happens. This is one where I didn't do anything really specifically wrong, but the tension and just working the skin caused this split. So you can see the gray hairs coming out, or feathers. And so my task here is to not let that get bigger, while also still skinning my bird. Whew. It's a bummer spot, too. And the good news is, if it keeps ripping, I mean, I still can repair it. It's just annoying. You know, every repair I have to make is one less thing that's as true to the original. But I can still get it pretty darn close, and it'll still be very usable as a research specimen. But... And for show taxidermy, they'll actually make a lot more incisions than I do, and then repair them up, because then that allows you to do stuff with armatures. Oh, wow. I think part of my problem here is that the head seems kind of dry. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Okay, so on this side, this is being weird. There's a lot of dried blood and dried skin over here. And it's right up by the eye, so that's not... If you're going to have it, that's a spot to have it. I'm not happy about it. I have a lot of plumage coming through that hole now. Come on, buddy. Okay, so here's my dilemma. So this is my tear with all this fuzz coming out, which means I want to skin the other side of the head first to try and get some tension off of that side. But I'm already coming up against a problem here where the eye is dry and damaged. And so that's inhibiting my ability to do that on this side. Ooh, little friend. Oh yeah, and this side's torn now too. Gracious! You looked so good, little buddy. Why are we doing this? And if birds' heads are gonna... If birds are going to tear, it's gonna be their heads, usually. They, that stuff dries out faster. You know, so none of this is super weird. It's unfortunate. But not strange. Wow, yeah, his head's just man, tough here. Oh yeah, the back of the tongue seems to have gotten disassociated. Man, yeah, this is... Wow, yeah, okay. This is way rougher than I thought. So I'm going to have like a perfect little body and a really rough head on this guy, which is the opposite of some of the other, you know, tougher specimens I've had. Yeah, sorry, not here. Not a good time for a kitty visit, especially not right now that I'm suffering through this little bird. This guy is not giving me an easy run. And then I got the ear out, just perfect. What? Oh, that ear anyway. Okay, so this side of the head is in tolerable good shape. I've got that going okay. That's the side with my original tear. Thanks, not here. Oof. So part of my problem is the skin is dried to the bone. So I'm literally scraping a papery thin layer covered in feathers off of dry bone, which has the texture of a ping pong ball, because I can push my thumb right through it if I push too hard. So it's going. It is going slow and inelegantly. But then I got this ear out. Camera's looking at nothing here. Sorry, guys. There we go. So I just got this other ear out. Ugh, man. Oh, and there's the concussion. Let's see. Yeah, I have shredded this bird's head. That's rough. That's going to be annoying to fix. It's fixable. It's annoying to fix. Yeah, so this is another concussion bird. I don't know how well you guys, there you go. So there's the concussion. You can see all that fluid pooled underneath the bone layer there. So, and that's what the other bird that this one was found with had too, is it had a concussion. But we're also at 100% ossified because you can see all those little evenly spaced dots. So this was an adult bird, which the plumage indicates, who died of a concussion. So at least we don't have a mystery bird this time. We've had a lot of mystery birds lately. This one's, there's no mystery in that sense on this guy. The mystery is, can Anna Marie put this back together in a way that it looks like a bird? That's going to be a little tougher. So that's where the small birds are both absolutely wonderful and the worst. Because on the one hand, you do one stitch and you're done. But on the other hand, if that one stitch doesn't do it, you're still done. And that's annoying. Well, that eye came out okay. Alright, let's see this other side. Okay, well, and nice news. The eyeballs aren't so dry that they're being a big problem. Okay, so that's cool. So basically what I want to do is I want to get this head cleaned out as fast as I can while everything is still pretty wet and I haven't stressed it too bad, so that I can get to repairing as fast as possible. So, yeah. Oh, and actually I should pause and update my data. Okay, so data. Actually, yeah, it's still no molt. Yeah, so no molt. Fat was light in furcula. I don't think I saw any abdominal fat. Yeah. And then ossification is 100%. And I'll say evidence of head trauma. Okay. Alright, so I did my data. Now let's get this brain out of here. Oh, no, let's get the eyeball out of there first. And then we'll deal with cleaning out that skull. Yeah, so those eyes are pretty dry. You can see how, like, flat and misshapen it is. So this bird was sitting out for a while before it was picked up and put in the freezer. Not enough to go bad, but enough to desiccate. And both have the skin of its head dry to its skull a little bit, which is annoying for me, and then have the eyeballs pretty thoroughly deflate and get gross looking. Yeah, so there's my other little eyeball. Very flat. Very low fluid. People often ask if, you know, you leave the eyeballs in and whatever with taxidermy because the artificial eyeballs in taxidermy is so good. And it's like, no, eyeballs get pathetic so quickly. Alright, eyeballs are out. Let's get that brain out. Okay. Get that out. Alright, and pop that little booger loose. Man, that pallet doesn't want to come loose. Come along, small friend, we got other stuff to do. Alright, so there's the back of the brain and the tongue. Nothing interesting really in there. Get that out of the way. It's always hard when you have a bird rip, because of course when you start they generally look fantastic. And that's because all of the soft tissue damage, the drying, you know, the beginning of decomposition, all that sort of stuff that could be going wrong is hidden by feathers. And so you really cannot see anything except how lovely the feathers are. And it's a challenge to not beat yourself up too bad when you have a specimen start to fall apart on you. Because it's a dead critter that's been dead for some unknown amount of time. We don't know what killed it, you know. There's a lot of factors here other than my own mistakes. And not that your own mistakes don't affect it, because they do. But little mystery dead birds on sidebox are not really top of the heap when it comes to specimens. But it's gotta keep going. If it is your fault, then get over it. And if it's not your fault, then still get over it. You know. Alright, let's get the rest of this out of here. Okay. I got most of these little rough edges out of the way. I have this like meaty corner of the mouth that decided to have extra stringy bits. I must have just cut it funny so it shredded instead of coming off as one bit. Looks funny. Alright. Okay, so I've got my skull cleaned out here. So here's the fun and games, is I have to get this right side out again after all of that damage. And then, or possibly I might start with a repair or two. I usually don't repair first if I can possibly help it, because I don't like putting pressure on the stitches when I put it back. That looks really bad. So I'm gonna stick with that this time, I think. The hard part now is to put the head back the correct direction without sticking the beak through one of the innumerable holes through its neck. So you can see, you know, all these tufts of hair sticking out where they absolutely should not be. Okay. I'm pretty confident I have the beak through the correct aperture. So, there's a start. A shard mom, it seems to be going quickly. Sort of. It's a small bird, so I'm going fast in that sense, because it's been about an hour. But now I'm going to have to do all the repair. And part of it is I realized I couldn't sit too long on some of the things I often linger and talk about, how I'm cutting through the tendons, how I'm doing stuff like that, because the other areas are demanding my attention. So I'm not lingering on the parts I find fun. I'm trying to just get through this so that I can focus on all these so not fun repairs I'm going to have to do. Okay, well, step one, I believe I put the bird right side out through all the correct holes. Yeah, because Shard Mom, I can actually do a little bird like this. Historically, I could do it in 40 minutes, start to finish, where, starting from a dead bird in a bag that needed its data collection and going through pinning it. I could do that in 40 minutes. I don't think I could right now, but the actual skinning of it's really easy. I just usually go slow when I'm explaining stuff, or I'll linger over, exalting some cool bird fact. And today I'm trying to deal with the fact that there are some problems. This little bird has some problems, and I'm gotta figure out how to fix those problems without creating more problems. So right now all I'm doing is trying to get the feathers to stick out in the correct directions, because some of them are sticking through holes, others are just sticking to skin next to a hole. So that's cool. Yeah, no, they're complete bird skin. And so yeah, you can see how if I wasn't talking at all and I had no problems, I could have just boom, 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 gotten my data, gotten those entered into a sheet. And if you imagine, like, instead of a little card that I have to fill out myself, if I just had a pre-written, list that I'm filling out, that part goes way faster. And yeah, and it's a pretty simple little body. So my record is 40 minutes. I have not gone at that speed in some time, so I do not know if I even would be able to right now. That hasn't been my focus for a while. Because when you're volunteering in the bird lab at the Field Museum, you cannot leave until your bird is done. You're basically committing to come in that day and finish that specimen, because they don't have the ability to track, whose half-finished project is this kind of thing. So for your average volunteer, you come in, you complete something, and you leave. And so they really push efficiency and having you be able to just get it done. And I got pretty good at it. In my lab, we didn't do that. In my lab, I set up a system that people were encouraged to do things only halfway, because unlike at the Field Museum, my lab was open to the public. And that's, one of those Venn diagrams, or, pick 2 out of 3. You can go fast, you can do something fast, you can do it well, you can do it cheap. In this case, it's, you could do it fast, you could do it well, or you could do it in a way that you're explaining to the public. You can only pick 2 of those. So you could go fast, and you could be explaining to the public, but you're going to get a bad specimen. And that's okay sometimes. You could explain it well to the public and you can get a good specimen, but you're going to be going slow. Whatever. And so I made room for my team to be able to do that by giving them the option of not finishing a specimen in one sitting, which is different than how the Field Museum ran their gig. Because my training focused on being fast. Being completely independent and very fast and not talking to the public. There were tours that came through the Field Museum Bird Lab now and then, but it wasn't like part of your standard visitor tour. It's up on the 3rd floor of the museum where, you know, some people get behind the scenes tours and stuff, but not everybody. Okay, what am I looking at here? That is a bunch of holes. Ugh. Okay, I'm gonna stand up and stretch. I think I've got this bird, mostly in the shape that I want. It's mostly gonna be okay. Whew, I gotta figure out what to do with that head and neck, and that's annoying. Okay, so here's my repair options. I can start repairing it now, and then stuff it, or I can attempt to stuff it, and then when I have the stuffing in there kind of giving it shape, I can do the repairs then. There's benefits to both. Doing the repairs ahead of time is what I usually do for torso tears. It gives the whole thing shape, and then you just, you know, then it's fixed, and then you can move on. So when you guys have seen me repairing, like, the tails that have fallen off, I usually try to do that ahead of time. Necks and heads are a little iffy because it's a small space to work in, and I'm much more concerned about how the end result looks, well, just how the end result looks. So he's a very cute little bird, and I don't want to lose that. It's a very cute little bird. Okay, so I just tightened all the skin around the head. Because my initial shoulder tear, I would just do when I'm sewing up the bird. That one's... I'm not going to change my technique. That's easy. But, like, this neck tear where the feathers keep not being sure which ones are... from which side of the tear, I might have to get this figured out sooner. Okay, I can see that. So I keep jumping between tools. I have this one which has a rounded tip, and then I have this one which has a pointy tip. And the roundy tip is good for moving the feathers out of the way, and I don't have to worry about poking a hole in the skin as much. But the pointed tip is better for adjusting, like, individual feathers or getting them unstuck from something. That's a big hole. But, of course, I could poke a hole with the pokey thing, so... Okay, so it looks like this hole along the back, it tore right off of the feather track. That's a pretty common thing and visually quite easy to fix, so I should be able to get that fixed up no problemo. I might just do this one first because I'm pretty confident I can see what needs to be fixed. And it's on the opposite side from a hole that I'm having a little bit of a harder time seeing what's wrong. And so this is a case where if I can just solidify a win and fix what I can see needs fixing, then I can go back and, you know, maybe the mysterious one will make a little more sense once this stuff is dealt with. Yeah, so I should probably sew that guy up. Okay. So I'm doing a pretty small repair in a pretty small area, so I actually don't want a lot of thread on my needle. Man, I think I might need to graduate up to a different needle. I'm going to get a different needle. Okay. Let's see what I got. These are all really similar in size. They are still thinner than what I'm working with though, so. Yeah, it's a slightly finer needle. I'll take it. And I often do double threaded, you know, where I pull the piece of thread evenly through the eye of the needle and tie a knot way at the back. Not going to do that here. I need it to be real thin. My other tweezers got a little dirty, which normally I don't care about too much, but every little factor here is going to make this tougher. Okay, so I've got 2 stitches in. I'm going to tie these into a knot and then see if I can do 1 or 2 more stitches without doing it suture style if I can help it here. I think I'll be happy if I don't have to. Okay, so I've got that basically sewn together. Well, I've got it knotted. Now I gotta sew the rest together. And the hard thing here, which I messed up on a previous specimen, sometimes you catch and sew together the wrong bits just because they're stuck to each other because it's all wet. And I really don't want to screw that up here because it's just a whole complicated area. So, not that I ever want to screw that up anywhere, but you know what I'm saying. I'm particularly aware of that being a possibility here. So at the lab at Beecher, I had some really sharp tweezers, and I'm missing those now. Because these ones, even though these seem pretty fine-pointed, they feel huge and dull compared to this incredibly tiny bird. I was watching a show on Netflix yesterday called The Repair Shop, which if you have Netflix, it's great. It's the repair shop just repairs things and then people are happy about it. It's a real good, wholesome, feel good show. And there was someone repairing jewelry and he had a tiny jewelry saw which they could barely zoom in on enough for you to actually tell it was a saw. It just like a piece of wire. It was cool. Tiny tools are fun. Am I seeing this right? I'm probably doing more stitches here than I absolutely need to. So I'll see after this one if I can just sew it up. It's a remarkably big gash up the neck, which is part of my problem here, but too many stitches is a real problem because then you're just poking a lot of holes in your bird, but this is a really big hole actually. Yeah, this is like a 6-stitch repair. I don't like that. Most repairs should be done in like 2 or 3 stitches. And this one I'm feeling like it's more, but I have to always like doubt myself. Like, do I actually need that many stitches? Or am I gonna overdo it? But I think it's okay. We'll know for sure in a moment. It's looking alright. It's alright. It's alright. Maybe like 1 or 2 maximum more stitches, I'm gonna say. And then I just gotta be done because I can't. It's just not enough bird there, you know. And I've got feathers coming through here, which I think are from the other hole, which is very confusing to look at. So. Oh, not here. Do you need the tiny saw that is, it looks like a piece of wire? It was absurd. It was so cool. And the guy used a laser to cut through things. There's a whole thing about different solders and the reason why he couldn't let the whole jewelry piece get too hot. And so he just went bzz, bzz, and cut through little parts with a laser. It was pretty cool. I know some days I sound like a spokesperson for Netflix, but people keep recommending me these things on Netflix, and I end up really liking them, so there we go. The jewelry guy was cool. He had a lot of fun toys. And the show is based in England, so everything they're repairing is like 250 years old, and you know, oh, my great whatever, who was the Grand Duchess of whatever, or you know, things like that. It's very funny. Very England. Okay, I'm gonna do 1 more stitch and then tie this off, I think. Call that done as done can be. Nuts. Started to poke a hole and the needle slipped out of it. Which means I inevitably end up with 2 holes, which is not a thing that I really want, but sometimes it's the thing you got. So. Alright, so pull the needle out of there. It's really tough to tie knots amongst all the feathers too. So here's this like single piece of thread amongst similarly gray feathers that I'm trying to grab with tweezers without grabbing the feathers and then tie a knot. The repair shop is funny too because it's another BBC presentation. It's this British show. And so they've got, the ending has this like really grandiose voiceover, and this guy's like, at the repair shop. And it's very kind of overdone and very funny to my American ears. Okay, I'm going to try one more knot and then I'll call that. Basically there's 3 holes. One that's a continuation of the tear of the neck, and then these 2 independent little openings, and I've got one of them now closed. I just have to knot the thread so that it hopefully doesn't completely unravel before I finish stuffing this little guy. Okay, I'm pretty sure I have a feather right through the center of that knot, which is like the literal thing I don't want to do. Let's see if I can fix that. I have magnifiers. Let's use these. And yeah, okay, so I've definitely tied the knot right around a feather, and I'm not seeing the easy way to get that guy out. That's annoying. It's so funny when you're working on really tiny things how dull your pointy stuff is, because I'm using my sharp probe, and it is so dull and ridiculous compared to a single feather. You know, or parts of a single feather. Ugh. Okay. Oh, this is so small. Hey, okay, I got it. I just had to whine a little bit more. Obviously, I had to just complain enough that it would work out. Okay, so I've got the major feather out of here, I think. So make sure it's going to lay right even a little bit. Oh, you friend. I think I'm going to have to call that good enough. Okay, so I'm going to tighten this knot. Knot is tightened. Trim that loose. Ugh. Okay. So that is one... That's one problem fixed. And actually it looks pretty good. So if I smooth those feathers back over, there's a dent there, but they're supposed to be because there's no feathers. So that, whew, that got fixed. Okay. Ugh, okay, hold on. let's take a minute. That was a little bit less fun than I really was hoping for. Okay, so the other hole... Ooh, it's a little dry. Oh. Okay, to catch everybody up, in case anybody just popped in while I was doing tiny minute work, this is the skin of a chestnut-sided warbler. I've already skinned it. All of its guts and, you know, brains and eyeballs and stuff are over there. But it's such a small, delicate bird, and it was definitely sitting out in the sun for a little while. Its eyes had sunken into its head, and it dried out a little bit. That as I was skinning the head, there was a tear around the neck, which honestly was probably my fault, just being a little bit rough. But then there are two openings that opened up at the back of the head that are mostly from the fact that the skin was starting to dry. I've repaired one of those. There's another one to go. Ugh. I'm not happy about that. And I can either repair that now, or I can wait until I have some of the stuffing in it and then see if I want to do it around the stuffing. Now I have to check my work to make sure that I didn't actually sew his neck shut. So if I sewed his neck shut, then there may be copious swearing, and figure out what to do next. I'm gonna say no, I don't think I sewed his neck shut. One has to check. That's a thing that you do. They're so little. No, I don't think I did. Alright, so that's good. So, that looks like a three-dimensional bird, not a flat bird. That's good. Yeah, I did not sew his neck shut. Actually, let me see if you guys... Don't know if you can see my repair. Yeah, it's a little hard to see, but I'll just tell you I'm very happy with that particular repair. So that's one repair done. The other one... You know, the other one I'm not going to repair right now. The other one I'm going to wait until I have stuffing in there, because I bet it's going to be like a 2-stitch and then I'm done. So let's not do that yet. And then the shoulder I'll just do when I'm sewing up the whole guy. That one, that's a classic mistake. That's a classic tear. Like, it's a friendly, snuggly tear. It's like, oh hey man, I know you. You're a mistake I make all the time. Not all the time. Okay, then I am going to get that off and get my cotton. Ugh. It's probably way more than I need, but it's okay. And it looks like I don't have a stick right here. Okay. So I have a backbone, I have cotton, thread, all that good stuff. Let's see if these got cleaned up enough. My tweezers and my scissors that I was using for the actual taxidermy part ended up with dried tissue on the end, which on a big bird I wouldn't have cared about. It'd be so minute, but with this little guy doing all the tiny, tiny stuff, it was really annoying. But it seems like I have soaked that stuff off, and at least my tweezers are clean. Yeah, okay. So, that was annoying. Annoying. Because I like these straight tweezers. Like, they're better for a lot of the steps that I do. These little curved ones are great for their things, but not for all things. Okay, so before I get in there, let's just make we'll make the head, make the body, get all the stuff ready so I can just pop it in there right away. So first his brand new little backbone. So there's his entire original torso. That's it. This is a really small bird. So neck, sternum, belly, leg, so it's little chicken. And so I need to make his new backbone. And so I make the new backbone just a little bit longer than the body so I can include, a little bit for the head there. A little bit longer. That's probably fine. Boop. And it's wonderful when you break the wood, it has the nice little, kind of rough splintery ends. So I can take my cotton that we used for his head and just go boop and stick it on and kind of spin it into place. And I give a little Q-tip. And so that is his new brain on the end of his new spine. So there's that. Eyes I'll do last. Let's do body. Make my favorite little body form here. Yeah, working at the desk lab at the museum was interesting because in the fall there was practically no one in the museum at all. School restarted, people are done with vacation, and so there was somebody, but there weren't a lot of people in the museum, and we were just whipped through specimens. You just start and finish something in a day, and it's really great, and you're still talking to your teammates and stuff, but it's not the same, And then you get to the spring, and it's traditionally field trip season, and you don't finish anything. You're just dealing with the next group of second graders and the next group of second graders, and oh god, there's middle schoolers, and oh, there's a college group, and and oh, more second graders, and people. I had a lot of people who actually wouldn't even work on their main projects. They would ask to do some simpler things so they could divert their attention better to the crowds. And we had all sorts of other preservation projects. You could clean bones, you could label bones, you could polish acrylic. Polishing acrylic was a remarkably popular task because there's a lot of specimens that are housed in acrylic where someone just casts something in an acrylic block so you can see it and handle it without damaging it. And those get scuffed up and discolored over time, so people would just sit there polishing acrylic and dealing with the huge crowds. And you couldn't do that all the time because kind of the point was we wanted people to be working on specimens, and people would. But if you were having like a day where you were even at like 80% of normal, you're like, that's not close enough. Take a day to polish some acrylic or pick seeds out of fresh cotton or something. People made up their own projects. They would, tidy up some sort of data set or organize a drawer or things like that. Those were always kind of fun to come up and find out what someone had done. I was like, oh, okay, well, I kind of really wanted you to do a specimen, but I can't possibly complain because you fixed that really, really messy drawer, so good on you, And it was nice. People would do these extra tasks, and it made the lab feel very, homey, and it had a good community feeling where people were maintaining all these other areas. Because it wasn't about ultra efficiency. It wasn't about getting as many things done as possible. Alright, let's make a little warbler body. So I've got my nice sheet of cotton here. And I'm just rolling it real tightly around this little core that I made. Okay, it's about half the size I need, just completely fine. So I'll take some of this extra off the top. It's not my best body I've done. I think this little bird has me slightly on tilt. Which, you know, when you have to do that many repairs, fine. Like, yeah, not my best bird body. Well, let's add a few more layers, see what I can pull out of this. If I need to, I can just start over. I've got more cotton. It's starting to feel a little bit better. A little tall. Alright, so I've got my basic bird body here. Yeah. It's a little on the big side, but I think, well, it's a little long and thin, basically. My structure is a little weird. You can see it's actually pretty close to the size of the original bird here. And of course it looks fluffier, but that's because it's not as dense, so it's gonna smoosh a little bit here. I think that's an okay start. I add just a little bit more to this guy. Okay, so I've got a basic body. I've got my basic little head. So, need to tie his shoulders together and give him some eyes. So let's do that. We'll do the shoulders first, so they'll help keep the one tear from getting worse, actually, because it'll kind of tighten the skin up, so that's good. So, as always, to make shoulders, you tie together wrists, because birds are at rest, have their wrists up by their shoulders. And so the feathers naturally sit very comfortably when you have their wrists and shoulders at pretty much the same spot. Okay. Tying tiny knots. So tiny. Alright. So I've got my two bird wrists here. And then take my actual body, and so I want my shoulders to be, you know, a little bit farther apart to make up for the missing tissue, but that's not bad. Maybe a little... There, that's probably good. So holding that together that way. Got to one-handed tie this. So the downside of removing the radius is that means that I don't have quite the tight knot at the bottom of the wrist here, and that's okay. I can make this work. Okay. Let's get these into their proper spots now. So the ends of the bones that were sticking up were the elbows, so my goal here is to put the elbows back into the wings where the elbows would naturally sit, which is conveniently at the end of the line of flight feathers. So I can see exactly where it needs to go. And that just settled right in there, actually. Cool. Alright, so that's one wing. So you can see this one hasn't been popped out yet, so it's all pokey. Get that bone back in place. Yeah, so before I put the bone in place, you can see how the feathers are kind of gappy and clumped and uneven. And then I just resettle everything over that bone. And now it's sitting much more evenly. Okay, so the wing's in the right spot now. I cut some of the chest feathers in the body as I was tightening that up, but luckily that's very easy to fix. It just looked real funny for a moment there. Alright. Okay, so that I can see. Okay, great. So now I've already got a pretty good little bird shape going on here. You can see the skin even wants to kind of go back into its natural form. Great. My challenge here is to get everything up into the head without popping out all those stitches I worked really hard in getting into place, which is a bummer. So I don't want to do that. But of course I have to be up through that neck to place both eyes, the head, and then ultimately the body in place. So a lot of stuff I'm going to have to move around. This guy does not have huge eyes. Yeah, a little bigger than that, though. And so to make eyes, I just start with a little sheet of cotton and just fold it a bunch of times until it is a little ball. I love the idea of folding something into a ball. It seems very counterintuitive. Folded things usually have corners, but cotton isn't known for holding corners. So there's my little eyeball. And compared to the original eyeballs, it's a little big, but it should be okay, I think. Let's find out. So I have to not stress my stitches and not go through the hole. I think I have succeeded at both of those things. Okay. Yeah, that seems like a good size. That's fitting in there really nicely. So, okay, so that's one eyeball. Now we just have to do that again. Okay, so that's my next eyeball. Let's see if we can pull this off a second time. Yeah, there's a bit of bloody, grody tissue there. Let's deal with that. Oh, it's okay. Alright, so I've got two eyes in place. So far, it's more or less doing what I want. That's good. So let's get his backbone and little brain poof in there. So this goes behind the thread of the shoulders. And then up through that same stressed neck. I've been largely sliding things along the throat because the throat didn't have any tears. It was all along the back of the head, so if it was going to stick anywhere, if I stick it along there, it should hopefully not be a problem. That seems to be working out okay. I definitely made the brain a little small, but it still passes the creepy puppet test, so I'm not going to labor on that. Okay, so far so good. Stuff that I'm seeing that I like. The other hole that was on the back of the neck, you can't even see it. Most of the time as I'm moving feathers around, it's not being super evident. So that does imply that even potentially just leaving it might work out really well. And my repair job seems to be holding together. There was a big tear along here. And I can tell where the feathers are a little wet, where that had been, but it's not giving me any hassle. And overall, the bird now is starting to, you know, have a 3D shape, which is good, because, you know, birds, they're 3D. So, yeah, that goes like that. Okay. So my biggest challenge now, I think, is going to be keeping the bird straight, even though the incision here goes off on over the shoulder and thus causes the whole thing to turn. Because basically all the tension, you know, where you have the cut, the tension's gone, so the head just moves away from it, and makes everything kind of look crooked. And so I want to not have a crooked bird. Obviously. Birds look better when they're, you know, more or less the right shape. It's usually not crooked. It looks okay. Let's get these leg bones pushed up before I put the body in. The legs are kind of funny because if you have them all stretched out. Chardon Mom, gotta go. Are you on tomorrow? I am not. I am taking tomorrow off for Christmas Eve, so I'll be back Saturday night. So Merry Christmas. Okay, move those legs up. Man, yeah. If I didn't know better, I'd think this was in great condition. Oh well. Still a little worried about this body shape, but just gonna have to roll with it. I think just got to do it. I think it'll actually be fine. So this is the final thing. I have to get up through that neck without stressing all the stitches I did. Tighten this up a little bit. Find myself going above the camera there, sorry. Alright. It caught on the stick. That's why it was coming through a little funny. Okay, no, this is... Right off the bat, this looks really good. I am actually feeling positively. Even though it looks very funny to have the bird with, you know, cotton erupting out of its mouth like that. But trust me, that's okay. That part's not weird. Okay, and then something that I've been doing more often now, I will do here, is I've been tying that little backbone stick to the actual body poof, and been very happy with the results of that. So I'm going to take a moment and do that. New skills I learned 2020, this particular tying step. Because all technique can probably be improved, probably. It at least deserves a review. And tying this here is one of those things where I would often be like, oh darn, the stick moved, I wish it didn't do that. ... And like, no, there's probably an action one can take that would have an effect on it. So, it gets a weird little belt. And then, I can tuck this whole thing into here. Alright, there's a little pouch basically at the bottom of his torso. Oh, there we go. That I was trying to get my body model to fit into, and it just slid into place. And looks pretty good, actually. Okay, yeah, like, boom. As soon as I get that in there, you see he's got this cute little belly. Hey, Meganera, happy Festivus! I have no grievances to air at you, I'm sorry. I hope your aluminum pole is quite shiny. But not in a way that's too distracting. Okay. Okay. Whew. Huh. Oh, that reminds me. I can change my overlay back to mostly not gross. There we go. We're past that part. Meganerica, oh my gosh, you missed out with a very tense repair job. I did not. I had 3 holes in the back of this bird's head that I've been trying to repair up, and seems to have gone okay, but it was tense. At this point, this little chestnut-sided warbler is actually starting to look like a bird again. Because my final tear is this one here, where his feathers are just sticking out kind of all over. You can see on this side there's this nice, smooth, like, color progression. Over here it's like, nah, and this bit's just hanging off instead of being attached up here, and that's a big pain in the butt. And then he had another hole in the back of his head, which I think just resetting everything, it's completely covered and we're never going to worry about that again. So, cool. Moving right the heck along. Not worrying about that even at least. So I should just start sewing this guy up. That, like, the fact that the feathers want to sit that nicely, like, I haven't sewn this bird up at all and it just looks like a bird. Good feels. Definitely going in the direction we want. Where's that super fine needle that I just got? Oh man, did I lose a needle? Hanging out with the meat. So I might do this whole bird as a single thread again, instead of double threading it, just because he's so small. I'd rather... No, I'm going to double thread it. I'm more confident with that, and at this point I could use a little confidence. It's been a rough trip on this guy. Let's go like here. I think it's actually going to come out really beautifully, but man, those tears were really small. Alrighty. Alright, let's get this little guy just back together. Move this back down a little bit. Yeah, the bottom of this bird is just in just fab shape. Very happy with how all of this looks. Okay. Trying to move all the feathers out of the way so I can actually see the skin and not just the feathers looping along next to it, wetly into it. Which I think I have now achieved, but you know, you gotta take a second. Alright, and then busting out the old baseball stitch. I'm gonna compare the size of this bird to the one I did last week. I think this guy is even smaller. Because I probably didn't get any taller, and this one just feels really, really minute. Man. So down here, some of the feathers have looped around the edges and kind of dried against the skin on the inside, which is a bit gross, and making it hard to see the actual edge of the skin. Just a little... Might just get my headset back out and look all cool. There, okay, I found it. I just had to threaten wearing my magnifiers and then it worked out, obviously. Never tried sewing with magnifiers on. That could be kind of funny. Okay, yeah, just gave that a quick tighten and that little bird tummy came right together. Looking good. Very happy. Let's see. Yeah, actually, overall, the edge of the skin is in good condition down here, so cool. I wouldn't say something as ridiculous as usually there's only problems on the top or the bottom of the bird, but rather it is nice when there's just a bad region and a good region. And I appreciate it when my troubles are contained in one area or the other, so I get one area that looks real good, the other area that might be somewhat problematic, but then I just fix it. It's okay. Okay. So we're about halfway done stitching this guy up. And I'm closing in on the mistake I made where I tore it up by the neck. So I'm going to have to kind of like pick up that side of the tissue and get it reattached, which is not really even that difficult. It's just something I have to remember, you know, as I'm getting up here. So let me dab just the littlest bit of moisture in here. This area that I've been messing around with to do repairs and whatever like that seems to have dried just a smidgy more than the rest of it had. As soon as you get it wet, everything looks a little different. Everything sticks a little more. But it's also elastic, which is what I'm going for. So oh, that looks great. Okay, so actually this is pretty obvious. So you can see now this big tear just going zoop off to one side. So I've basically sewn up the incision that I made intentionally, and now I've got to reattach this this kind of diagonal rent, and that's it. Then he's together. So you know it's coming along. This is continually moving in the direction I was hoping it would, which is nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So a big part of, you know, this is a research specimen. And so I have to make sure that the end bird actually looks like what the bird is supposed to look like. And so this guy, I should have marked this page. It's a chestnut-sided warbler. Let me just look it up. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Chestnut-sided warbler. Chestnut-fronted macaw? No. Wasn't it chestnut? Or am I remembering wrong here? No, chestnut-sided. Index. Come on, I know how to use you. There we go. Warblers. There are many. Chestnut-sided, 409. Okay. So, here's my little guy. And my problem here is this chestnut side, which is literally the thing the bird is named after. I have to make sure that's one continuous piece. So when I repair it, that needs to be preserved. And so not only am I just trying to get the bird to hold together, which I'm trying to do, but I have to make sure that this line of brown is unbroken as I put those two pieces together, and not, you know, at a weird jag or something like that. I have to make sure that it's indicative of what the field markings of this bird would look like, because that's what researchers are going to be looking for when using this specimen. Oh, Meganera, shout out to you. I think I mentioned to you that on my stream yesterday when I signed off, I rated the bald eagle cam that you had originally pointed me towards. And Sheridan Mom, who has now left the stream but was on earlier, loved it, had a great time watching it, and actually was on to see the father eagle come back and help feed the babies. So managed to rate it a particularly good time. So thank you for the recommendation of that channel. 'Twas a winner. Okay, now is the test. Now I've got to get these sides back together. So sewing up the main incision is really easy because I cut through an area that doesn't have any feathers, so I have a lot less feathers that get in the feather track, or that get in the feather stitching. Wow, no, the central stitching. Words. Unfortunately here, that since it tore like off in whatever direction it wanted, I don't have the benefit of that nice naked portion of skin. Although, that's starting to look pretty good. Alright. Oh good, here's a naked bit here I can sew through. Oh fudge, I popped a stitch. Okay, I gotta go back. Ah, that sucks. It was going really well. This is what happens when the tissue starts really drying out, is that sometimes the stitches will just rip through because it's all so delicate at this point. That's too bad. Okay. Okay, little bird. We're getting close, little friend. So close. This is going to be such a cute, pretty little bird when it's done. It's just got to be done. Okay, so that lines up there. Might have lost some feathers. Oh, I see where those are. Okay, I'll fix that in a second. Okay, so I've got my continuous line on the side that wasn't damaged. And then on the side that was damaged, that's a pretty continuous line. You know, it's not bad. So I might just have to knot this. How much farther do I have to go? What's up the top? Yeah, I'm just tying a knot. I'm declaring that done enough. I'm gonna have to cut my needle off before I can tie a thread or not. Oops. Totally okay. Yeah. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. Let me get this knot in place before I declare victory, but overall I'm feeling like this has come together and looks like a bird. And not just any bird, but the literal type of bird that it is. Okay, not here. I'll catch you later. Take care. You know, I thought I turned on something where I could see the timestamps on when people said stuff, but I guess not, so I hope you hadn't left like 10 minutes ago and I missed you. Okay. Consider that not knotted enough. There we go. Okay, so now it's a question of getting all of the feathers back into places that make sense. Things have been moved around by the skin losing tension and me messing with it. So oh, is this my other hole? Okay, that's what this is. So right in here is my other hole. And I still think I'm not actually going to repair that with thread. Let's get this, all this extra out of here. That head's in a pretty good spot, actually. That is looking pretty fine. Okay. So that's trash. Blap. Alright, that's a slightly rough looking still, but yeah, I'm really happy. Okay, so right off the bat, you can see I've got the chestnut sides are nice and even, so even though there was a uneven tear, those have settled out real nicely. Real nicely. Oh, and you can see his great back plumage. Like all these cool stripes and his little yellow head. Ooh. Okay. Pretty happy. So let's tie his beak shut and tie his legs together. And this little dude is ready to be pinned. Which is pretty exciting. I'll still use my really fine needle for this. I'll do his beak first. So I was exploring the option of getting some of the various and sundry science experts I know to maybe come and talk on my channel and answer questions. And one of my friends who is a museum interpreter and chemist is somewhat interested. So, oh my god, I did that in my old-fashioned way. Let me fix that. So, yeah, that could be cool. I'd love to get her on. I haven't gotten any sort of warm response yet from my field biologists I know, but they're somewhat protective of their winter non-field time. So, because, you know, when they're in the field, obviously you can't bother them, so no one really expects to, but then everybody bothers them in the wintertime because they're not in the field. And you're like, hey, you must be made of free time. It's the winter. And of course, that's not true at all. The wintertime is when you do your data cleanup and your actual, like, number crunching to learn what you learned from when you were in the field, or to be able to explain what you learned in the field. And so people with really strong field seasons often are still busy even when they're not in the field. But too bad, so sad. They should come over and talk. I think that'd be cool. I also miss them. I had promised big promises during my Saturday stream when I found strange insect eggs, because like, oh, I'll bother the entomologist I know. It's the week of Christmas. No one's answering their email. What was I thinking? So no, I won't have an answer for that for some time, because it's the week of Christmas and people have lives. So fine, you know. Yeah, week of Christmas this week and Hanukkah just wrapped up. Like, it's pretty much the worst time for everybody. Everybody's got family. If you're celebrating winter holidays, you're celebrating them right now. Because let me tell you guys, it's winter. Okay, let's get these legs tied together. He's so teeny. There we go. Look at those cute little feeties. Wow, the toes are already so dry. They're like hardened into place. There's no moisture in bird feet. Many birds, like famously ducks, have this cool biomechanics thing where they don't circulate the blood in their feet back through their body terribly often. And so they can swim in super cold water and they're not just funneling cold, chilled blood back up into their body, which is all well and good, but that still never answered my question of how their little footies don't just freeze off. And I think it's just that there's just not a lot of moisture in there to begin with. So there's nothing to freeze. I don't know the answer to that. That's another one I should look up. Okay, so I got his feet together. His claws are going to give me nightmares, I can already tell. Got his beak shut. That is a completed bird. Oh, that was tough. Okay. That was a complicated bird. Let's see. I didn't really have any other additional notes, so I don't really have much to add to my data set. So let's make a little tag for him, and then I'll get my pinboard. In which my data tag is the size of the entire bird. That's a small bird. Alright. Oh, I'm going to poke my holes first before I... Okay. Now that looks like a data tag. So this is a Chestnut-sided warbler, which is Dendroica pensylvanica. And this is AF505. Alrighty. So we have our specimen label. Wow, I'm blowing through my strange thread stashes. Might actually have to start using like real thread in the new year. Crazy. So this is a little too long. There, trim it there. I do like going through my old weird thread stash, but time to up my game. I have a bunch of things I'm going to try and do better in the new year with this whole setup. I really, really, really want to change my desk setup, and I just have to move stuff around and commit to actually just messing with the whole room, which will be a big old pain in the butt to have to move stuff around, but I think I have a good plan. I need to get a better scale, something that can weigh smaller things, and I could use some better lighting. I've become a fan of this camera. I'm really surprised at how minute that camera can go and the tiny things you can see with it. So this camera and I have become friends. We didn't start out that way because it's not good at things that are far away. And so using it as like a face cam is an act of just madness. But this little camera and I, we've become buddies. So that I'm going to keep. And this camera's fine. Y'all don't really need to see me in great detail anyway. I'm the least interesting part. You want to see the bird. Um, but yeah, I got some hopes and dreams here. Just gotta figure out how to do them. Okay. So I've got my first knot in place, and then I put a second knot closer to the tag so it doesn't slide around and be annoying. Alright. Here's my cute little data tag. So this is my temporary tag, written in my horrible handwriting with pencil. They'll replace this when it gets to the museum. But this way, when they're unpacking my specimens, everything's clearly labeled. Because you don't want to be like, oh, it's the warbler. Like that. She was just asking for data to be lost or confused. And especially in a year like this, like, who knows how long this guy's going to have to sit around before somebody has a chance to fully get it into the system. And so this guy might not actually be fully accessioned for like 2 years, and just because the world's on fire. So I'd rather give it a nice hefty tag now, so that whoever ends up doing this, whenever they end up doing it, it won't be super confusing. Okay. Yeah, that's the end of that thread. Cool. Alright. I need to flip my workspace so that I can pin. So I'm going to take like a 5-ish, 10-ish minute break and do human stuff, like get a glass of water. It's been a minute. And flip my workspace so that I can do the final pinning. And then we'll still have time this evening to skin this guy too, I think. Or to not skin him. He's already been skinned, I'm sorry. Sex and figure out what his last meal was. So, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in 5 to 10. Alright, I'm back. Ugh. I have my pin board. Oh, and I looked at things at a distance. it was magnificent, let me tell you. Alright. And then, this is nice because these are a number of the other specimens that I've recently finished. So, I'll give you guys the top-down cam. And it's cool because they're mostly dried at this point, but of course it's hard to tell because feathers just look like feathers. But if you look at those weird feet, this side there's better lighting. And there it is. You know, those are definitely dry. The skin there has changed color, it's changed state. So you can kind of tell how the specimen overall is doing by where the feet are. So these two are finished. That guy, of course, has not started. Because I just finished it. Okay. And for anybody who hasn't seen this board before, these are not normal. So having the big hoops over the birds is kind of strange. I have that because the setup I have is in... I'm trying these in what's technically a shared stairwell in my apartment building, and it opens to the outdoors, which means that flies or other insects can potentially get in and get onto my specimens. And so I have a drape that I put over this, and I don't want it sitting directly on my birds, so I build like these little tent cages to help keep the drape off of them. And it works pretty well, but it looks funny. So, alright, so now I have this friend, my new guy, who gets to get the treatment like these other ones. Oh, how do I want to set up my camera for this? Let's start from over here. Alright. My board is getting a little bit cluttered, both because these wires are taking up more space than I'm used to, and I actually didn't think I would do this many birds before I did a drop-off. I did 2 last time, and this time I succeeded at doing 3. Good job, me. But I didn't use my space super efficiently. Which is, it's fine. It's just, you know, I gotta deal. Alright. So let me get some pins out before I get too far. So my goal here is to pin the bird to look like a little torpedo. So just like these guys, where it's you know, wings are tucked in, feet are tucked in, head's thrown back, little torpedo bird. That way it's uniform to all the other birds in the collection, or most of the other birds in the collection, and it fits really nicely in a drawer. There's not bits that are sticking out that might get caught on something and rip off over the course of its use in the next couple hundred years. If you keep it as a nice tight little bundle, it's going to be a stronger specimen. So the downside is that covers elements of the bird. You won't be able to see as much when I'm done, but it lasts longer. So you make the specimen for what you think you're going to use it for, and in this case, they want longevity over any specific style. So, got that great back. I basically tuck my wings in, so no more fancy flight feathers sticking out. I point the wings and rest them across the rump, like this. And when I pin it, these feathers will smooth down. And so you will see this great little like cape area here with his really strong barring and the colors of the head, but you won't see this kind of bland area on top of the tail, which in this species doesn't matter and others do. And it's, you know, it's just kind of a choice you make when you're pinning them. So I'll plop this guy down here. That should give me enough room to work. And then right away I just hit with like 4 to 6 pins. I want to get enough pins in that I'm maintaining the structure I just, you know, created by holding it in this position, but I want to be able to move my fingers out of the way. Okay. Okay. So like right off the bat, you know, there he is. He's a little tube bird. But we are not yet done. I want to make sure that it's even. I want to make sure that my colors are showing the way I want them to. Right now he's a little twisted. You know, all sorts of stuff. So, pinning, or I could do that and catch his foot and pull the whole thing out of kilter. Cool. Let me fix that. It's not harmed, I'm just annoyed. Luckily, I can just kind of slide it back into where I set those pins, so it's a good time to make that mistake, if one has to make it. Yeah, I can tell there's still a little bit of a twist to that body. Not loving that. Another thing to fix. Okay. Right now, you guys can kind of see. I'm trying to get his little feet to do what I want. Bird feet are covered in huge claws. It's ridiculously huge given the size of this entirely tiny little bird. And so you want to lay the feet down in such a way that the claws are also laying down and they're less likely to catch on other specimens that would be in the drawer next to them. Or the researcher. Like, the whole reason I just pulled it out of kilter is because the claw caught my finger. I am uninjured, but, you know, it moved my bird around in a way I did not intend. And since these toes are already kind of dry, man, this is not cooperating. And it's so annoying when you get done with pinning everything else and you look down and you realize that the bird has one giant, like, sickle-shaped hook just sticking up, begging to catch on everything that will ever pass it, ever, while it's being used as a research specimen. So I try to get the feet managed pretty early on. These are being pretty naughty, but I think I got it, and I'll just stick the tag over here. Okay, so I've got the feet managed. I might go back, but that's okay. This is a chestnut-sided warbler, so I have to make sure the chestnut coloration is on the side, not down the middle. And the feathers, the skin on the chest will move around, you know, things can end up kind of twisted, so you have to untwist it, you know, do the work, put it back. Actually, my camera view is making this look a little more twisted than it is. It's a little better. And the bird actually moves a little bit as it dries, so you want to put pins in places that at the moment it doesn't look like it needs it. Man, it just keeps twisting, doesn't it? But the tissue won't necessarily dry evenly, so you have to pin it in a way that if it does start to move, it'll hit a pin, and, you know, that little bit of tension might be all it takes to not have it distort outside of kind of what your goal is. Sometimes it does anyway, but, you know, you do your best. You can't watch it every second. That's crazy. Ooh, I like this wing patterning, though. Yeah, so overall this bird is laying really nicely. Down here, kind of turn it so you guys can see this a little bit. We have what is affectionately known as poofy pants. You can see this gray coming up here. That's from the bird's, like, thighs. It shouldn't be visible on the belly. And so I don't know if I can do this in a way that be really visible, but I basically just lift the belly feathers and put it over those thigh feathers. There we go. And so now those feathers that were kind of, you know, visible but should have been hidden are properly hidden. You just lift the feathers and set them on top of whatever it is you're trying to hide. I've got a knee sticking out here, similar thing, so I can cover that up. And we want those chestnut sides to show, but they have to be, you know, on the side. I have to make sure I'm tucking in tucking in what needs to be tucked in and leaving out that which needs to be left out. And this is one where checking the book before I'm done is going to be a good idea, because this bird's field markings are so complicated. I could really easily screw it up where, you know, things that are supposed to be central or on the side or vice versa, or high or low. And that's stuff that its hair is messed up. I just have to, you know, brush its hair and it'll look right. But if I don't know I need to do that, I could leave a mess, so... The chestnut color is really rather lovely, too. These are cool little birds. Warblers tend to be pretty, but not all of them. Some are kind of boring, I'll be honest. But, ooh, his head is crooked. I'm glad I'm looking at it from this point of view. Hello, buddy. I keep trying to give you guys a close view, but I don't think that's working. Maybe... Nope, you still can't see what I'm working on. There's a big dang dove in the way. Who put that there? Big dang dove. I probably shouldn't worry about that too much. Okay. Sorry to be doing this off camera. There's just not an easy way to get the camera on this, and so I'd rather get it done, and then I'll move the camera so you guys can see more again in a moment. I gotta figure out those workstation cams that people have where it's like directly above. Those are cool. That's clearly the setup I need here. So I like those a lot. Okay, well, the good news is I got him most of the way here. Okay. Let me move this back so you guys can see it. Okay. So I've got it much straighter, although it does keep wanting to twist on me here. Well, we'll go from there. But I've got my chestnut sides, so even though I did have the blowout on the neck, I got that repaired enough that you can really see that nice coloration. And those wings, like all the barring on the wings is so pretty. So I've got that. He's a pretty good overall shape. His belly ended up being a little big compared to his chest, but part of that is because I made the chest a little understated to deal with the tears. So he should have a stronger, like, breast muscle look, but it's okay. You know, dealing with the tears I know are there. The feet are fine. I don't love them, but they're already partially dried, so there's not a lot I'm going to be able to do to pull that off. And that's fine. The eyes are fine. They look googly and weird, and that's always great. And the cool thing with chestnut-sided warblers is the chestnut paneling isn't like a perfect bar. So I love this here, like, where there's kind of a rough edge. That's actually what the bird looked like when I pulled it out of the bag. He just has that as like a personality thing. So it's not supposed to be 100% even, and it's not, and that's fine. So this specimen, despite the fact it had holes in it, actually came out as an excellent specimen. I'm really happy about it. So it's very usable for research. This will dry in a day or two, even with the temperatures getting cold. And then hopefully before the end of the year I can drop it off to the academy. So that's really good. Feeling really good about that whole setup there. Okay, then I'm going to set these guys aside. So that's the skin, and now I have to finish my data. So move those out of the way. So to do that, I will change my heading back to gross. Boop. Stuff's about to get weird. Time to cut this guy open. And so I'm looking for stomach contents and gonads. So that should be fun. Where did I put my pencil? There it is. Boop. Okay, so for anybody who might not have seen that, there's my little body. This is the body of that beautiful little bird. It is not big. Should probably put a paper towel here too. I was unable to get decent disposable gloves because it's 2020 and PPE is a thing. So next year, I'm hoping at some point I'll be able to get gloves that actually fit my tiny hands instead of these big dumb ones, but not today. Alright. So, I'm basically cutting along the sides of the torso, cutting through ribs and all that sort of mess up towards the armpits so that I can just lift the whole front of the torso off of the back of the torso. Looks like he does have some abdominal fat, to update that. This is overall a really skinny little bird. Not like unhealthy skinny, more like very muscular and fit, but not a bit of fat on him. That's not true, there's a bit of fat on him. Okay. Alright, moving our intestines out of the way. Don't need those for this. Oh dang. And humongous testicles. Okay. Definitely male. Like, I was already saying he because the bird had male plumage, male mating plumage. But, gee, dang. Unquestionably male. So, if I can get my lighting... Let me zoom this in just a smidge. Alright, so those two whitish round things in the back there. I get a little lighting. Man. This is hard. They're in shadow, but there we go. Big old testicles. So this is male. No question. Which, you know, it's nice to have unambiguous ones. Fall warblers are kind of a monstrosity. Let me fix that. Okay. So, sex is male. We're gonna go right testy and left testy. So his right is this one. So we'll go for length is about 4 millimeters. Length 4 millimeters, and width is, I'll call that 4.5 millimeters. With 4.4 or 4.5 millimeters. 4.4. Can't measure that finally. And then the other one is length is again 4. And the width is significantly bigger. 5.5. It's a whole millimeter bigger than the other one. Alright, yeah, unambiguously male bird. That's cool. Alright, let's see what he ate. This is a warbler, so he almost certainly ate bugs. So let's get that. What do we got? Oh yeah, that is a stomach just absolutely full of bugs. Ooh, there's some definite beetle wings. Or beetle elytra. Oh, there might be ant parts in here too. Aren't you just a funny little guy? Oh yeah, tons and tons of beetle elytra. Oh, cool. Okay. Ugh. If anybody was curious, yeah, stomach contents smell real bad. Okay, well that's fun. Okay, I'm not picking up much more minute detail than that. Some sort of spotted beetle wing. There's a big leg. So everything in here is pretty chewed up. I'm not getting like a whole ant or something. Ooh, is that a really big head? And I use the chewed up term loosely. Birds don't chew, obviously. So it would have been digesting it for some time. Yeah, there's some pretty big insect parts in here. Okay, well, the beetle fragments are the parts that stand out the most, so... Ugh. Alright, cool. So, yeah, it's a warbler, so I expected to find bug parts, and I definitely did find bug parts, so that's exciting. And then that's it. I don't keep the body after this. The skin is nicely preserved. So the body is just look for those 2 data points, and then trash it. So I'll get rid of that guy. Alright, so gizzard, because it's actually not technically the stomach. The stomach is kind of this wee little thing just below the gizzard. The gizzard's the huge muscular thing that grinds up all those bugs. Because again, birds don't chew, so they've got to, you know, if you're eating something that has an exoskeleton, you got to get through that somehow, and the gizzard does it. So very full. Assorted arthropod parts, including beetle wings, large carapace segments, and legs. So, yeah, this is a successful bird. Oh, and I wanted to say light abdominal. Okay, so a little bit of fat on its furcula and abdomen, but not a ton. Okay, then that is all the data for that bird. Do I have my stapler? Yes, I do. So I have my original finder data from this bird that was found in LaGrange by A. Noodles and Company, and then all of the data I've been taking. And so I can always try to staple it together in a place that's not going to really damage it. It's a little tough, but there you go. Alright. So there's my bird data. That will go to the academy with the skin, so they can actually use it for research. So that little data, those little pieces of data have the same number on it as the tag on the bird, so they can remain associated, and eventually it'll get digitized. Hopefully in 2021, if they get their volunteers back and they can work on things like that, we'll see. But, okay, then that's... Alright, so that is the end of working on that bird. I got a few viewers left. If anybody has any questions, now's a great time. Because, man, taxidermy is weird. I'll be finishing up a robin on Saturday. And so we'll play with that guy on Saturday. That one, because it's a much bigger bird, I actually started that last week, but I didn't finish it. Unlike doing a tiny little warbler that I can just bust out in an afternoon. Because they're just so much smaller. But, man, who's on? Lots of cool people. Okay. We'll do a little raid. It'll be fun. And then if you guys are interested in more, I usually also do a Thursday stream. I won't do that week because it is a holiday. But I think that's okay. We'll just pop over the American Eagle cam. That was fun. So you guys can see eagles sitting on a nest of babies. They're fun. Start raid. Alright, well anyway, thanks for hanging out. And I will be back on Saturday. Merry Christmas, Happy Festivus, Happy Slightly Late Hanukkah, and all that great stuff. See everybody around.